The Magic financial markets are going crazy, and I have to admit, I'm going a little crazy trying to figure out exactly what's happening here. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here to talk about Magic money madness, all right? Things are going crazy with the Magic financial markets, and I'm trying to parse out exactly what's going on. So we're going to go over, in obviously my beautiful rambly fashion, what I think is going down overall. And we're also here for a secondary purpose to kind of refine the videos that are being made in this new location. I appreciate the feedback that you guys gave me from yesterday's video. I have to admit that disappearing act in the middle was fairly amusing when people are like, hey, I didn't know you could turn invisible. I'm like, wait, what happened? I went and looked back at the video. It's like, oh no. Also, I got the message of not having my face right up in the camera. So we're gonna do it today from a more seated position. I know people are like, you don't have as much energy when you're sitting down. So if I just do this for the whole video, actually, I'll probably pass out. I won't be able to keep it up. Anyhow, just let me know what you think overall of like the sound quality and the visuals and everything so I can continue to hone in on what works, because this is a different setup than yesterday's video. So on to the main subject, the money. Talk about the money. So what clued me into this was during one of the live streams I did over the last week or so, somebody pointed out to me that Magic card prices for old school stuff were going absolutely nuts. So I made a little mental note to go and check it out. And sure enough, one of the like first and most craziest examples to me was the massive surge in the price of a revised Brain Geyser. So ideally what's going to happen is I'm going to edit onto the screen a Brain Geyser. Hopefully that will all go normally, and on right now you will see a revised Brain Geyser on your screen. So it's a real simple spell, right? 2 blue and X, and it's basically target player draws X cards. It's got an old school wording where it's like you draw X cards or force your opponent to draw X cards. I like how old school cards had words like I'm going to force you to draw those cards. It just feels more intense. Like I'm gonna cast this spell, and it's just like I'm forcing the magic in your brain. Like, you know, like they didn't use that language with like damage. It wasn't like force your opponent to take 3 damage, but it's just something that adds a level of epicness to it, right? And the artwork is some of the most literal Magic artwork you can find. It's literally a geyser coming out of a brain. Now, this card was very, very powerful back in the day. And I'm not saying that it's not powerful now, but Magic's power level has gone way up. So Brain Geyser no longer feels like donkey brain busted, right? But back in the day, you were only allowed to play with 1 copy of this card. So it does have a pedigree of power. There is that. But here's the problem I'm having. About, I don't know, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I was going through binders, just trying to sort old school rares and new school rares. And I stumbled on like 4 or 5 Brain Geysers from Revised. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what these are going for. And I thought they'd maybe be like $4 or $5, right? Turns out they were $20. And I'm like, okay, you know what? It's been a fair bit of time since the last time I looked at the prices of these, and they've moved up to $20. That feels like a little much for a revised Brain Geyser, but I can understand that. Now we come to today, which is literally only a couple months later, and Brain Geyser is now a $75, $80 card, but it's for a revised copy. And that's a mind-blowing situation to me. Like, you have to understand that Revised is actually the 4th printing of Brain Geyser. We had Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, and Revised. Now, Alpha is the very first printing of Magic the Gathering ever. First set, first everything. And they didn't print a lot of it. And these cards were all made back when Magic was still considered just a game, just like any other game. You didn't think of these as financial instruments. Nobody preserved the cards, really. Sure, maybe people tossed them into binders or whatever. But I mean, people didn't play with sleeves or anything. These cards just got ruined. A bunch of cards got ruined. So Alpha cards, Beta cards, Unlimited cards, they all existed in these time frame of the ancient days where cards weren't going to live that long. By the time Revised rolled around, some people were starting to use penny sleeves or even like harder top loaders for the cards, but the majority of cards were still being played completely unprotected. The point I'm trying to make is that Alpha, Beta, and Limited are all far smaller print runs than Revised. Revised is a massive print run, okay? I mean, it's not like Fallen Empire is massive, I don't think, but still, just absolutely massive, which means there are way, way, way more copies. Oh, the background noise is probably kicking in. What are you gonna do? So, with the Revised copies, there's so many of these out there that there's no way that I can see to really justify the price increase to this degree. Like, how do you go from 20 to 80 in the span of a couple of months? Like, what is pushing that onwards? Where is the demand coming from, right? Like, when it comes to like alpha or beta cards, you can manipulate the market more. And by that, I mean individual actors can go out and purchase up particular cards. It's like, I'm going to go and grab a bunch of old school alpha or beta cards. That noise, good God. You're going to go and pick up a bunch of alpha and beta cards, and it shrinks the supply so much that you can actually push the price up. But Revised has been printed to the point where nobody can control the market on a Revised printing of anything. It's not possible. So what are your other options for this, right? Then it becomes, well, if it's not based on speculation where people are just trying to turn a profit, then where is this demand coming from? And you might go, well, what about 9394? And if you don't know what 9394 is, that is an old school Magic format that has gained some popularity. If you're interested in seeing some of that gameplay, I know that Unhinged Magi likes to do that. In fact, I was supposed to get together with them, and well, not get together physically, but digitally. We were supposed to actually play some old school 93, 94 games. There are a couple other people. Timmy, you can go check out Timmy as well. He likes to mess around with old school stuff like that. But if you know who that is, right? You know, maybe you'll see this video and leave a comment so you'll know. Regardless, there's a couple places to check out 9394, but to really understand like what 9394 is, you can only use Magic cards printed in 1993 and 1994. So Brain Geyser falls into that category, right? Revised is part of the 93-94 grouping. So it could be like, okay, you know what? These old school price bumps, they have to be going upwards because of 93-94, or just like, this is an old school powerful card. And like, I follow that logic. That was actually my logic, but then things fell apart once I got into Ice Age territory, okay? And by that I mean, there are other cards aside that seem to have moved around roughly the same time that don't fall into the 93-94 format and aren't as old as these cards. So the two most obvious examples to me both actually come from Ice Age. There's Jester's Mask, and Jester's Mask is a 5 casting cost artifact, 1 tap and sack it, and you get to basically take your opponent's hand, your opponent's deck, and make them a new hand the same size that they had out of all their cards. So if, let's say in a completely hypothetical scenario, you use this on your opponent, they had 7 cards in their hand, you take the 7 cards in the hand, you take their deck, and then you pick 7 cards out of everything and go, here's your new hand. So you can give them all lands, or you can give them all the most expensive spells in their deck, or if you have some weird strategy that actually cares about what's in their hand and you want them to have particular cards, you can just go, have those cards that fit into my weird strategy. But the thing about Jester's Mask is, it's a garbage card. I like, first of all, let me say, I love Jester's Mask. I loved Jester's Mask when it came out in Ice Age back in the day. I thought it was a really cool card, and I played with it. And that's part of the reason I know it's garbage. It's slow, and it's unwieldy, but it is fun. But there's no reason for it to have such a massive price jump. It's not like a super special card. It's not part of the 93-94 format. It's just this random, like, what is going on with the price of this card? Why is this card now so expensive all of a sudden? And the same thing happened with Ice Cauldron, which is another artifact that I personally am a fan of and loved when it came out, but also realize isn't the most amazing card. Ice Cauldron's really weird too. The artwork's evocative with that crazy like egg, right? But the idea behind Ice Cauldron's actually pretty simple. You tap it and spend like however much mana you want. You keep track of how much mana was spent and what kind of mana it was. So, you know, if you put like 6 red and 6 green, you keep track that you got 12 mana, it's 6 red and 6 green. And at the same time that you're putting all this mana into the cauldron, you also pick a card in your hand and put it on the cauldron. And that's basically the next time, like once the cauldron untaps, you can tap the cauldron to get all that mana out of it specifically to use for that one spell. So it's a weird sort of like payday loan in advance kind of thing. It's a weird setup. Ice Cauldron's a bizarre card, but it's not a particularly good card. Like the casting costs of these old wonky artifacts make them somewhat like meh, but again, we have it having an absurd price tag where it's worth anywhere up to 30 times most of the rares in the set, and not based on like, oh, a bunch of people are using it or whatever. It just apparently seems to be based on nothing. So after giving it more thought, the only thing that I really could come up with is, I think what's going on because of the situation in the world and everything's kind of falling apart in terms of what people are used to. I think there are people who have money who are desperately looking for any kind of like safe haven to put their money in where it'll either just hold where it's at or go up in value. And so they're targeting random old school Magic cards that even have the hint of maybe possibly being something, but I don't get it. It's just like Jester's Mask and the Cauldron and stuff like that. So you have these like crazy price pushes, but it doesn't feel like there's anything logical actually making it happen. So it's something that I wanted to talk about. If you have any ideas as to what's going on aside from just purely people trying to maybe cross their fingers and try and get, it's the same way like a bunch of people are jumping into Bitcoin. Maybe it's just new people who are like, yo, I want to get in on Magic cards and I want to spend money buying old cards that I think are a good store of value. But with the dual land shooting up so much in value and other stuff like that, like what felt like the traditional purchases for people trying to keep a store of value or have appreciation in value, it seems like maybe they've reached too absurd prices. So now there's new people who want in on the market game, but they just can't afford the bigger pieces, or the bigger pieces just aren't available. I don't know. I do know that people like who I mentioned before, Edwin and Open Boosters over there from Unhinged Magi. I mean, I saw a video they put out talking about how they're just buying up more stuff, right? There are people who are buying in at this point, but it seems like you would also have people who are selling out at the same time. So in my mind, like, shouldn't that at least somewhat balance out where it's like, yeah, you have more people who want to like buy cards, taking them out of the supply, but there's also got to be people selling into this. And so like, shouldn't that roughly equal out the supply? Again, understand that I'm talking about things like Revised and Ice Age. We're not talking about Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited, these truly scarce things. We're talking about something that's actually very common overall, right? Like, take it from somebody who's been in the game since pretty much the beginning, right? I've been playing Magic since 1994, and I've seen this stuff. It's not like it's hard to get things like Ice Cauldron or other like random rares from Revised, and yet they have these absolutely absurdist price tags. So I don't know, like, I will admit, I don't know enough about like markets and how this kind of stuff works to know if this is just like a new settling point, but I feel like there's no logic behind this anymore. I am really having a difficult time drilling down and figuring out what it is that drives all of this, but it certainly is fascinating to see it happen with something where there's so much supply, because normally price is dictated by supply and demand, but it feels like there's a ton of supply of this stuff, so you should be able to meet the demand. Why are the prices what they are? It's kind of confusing. I don't know. Either way, let me know your thoughts on that. And again, as I said at the beginning of the video, let me know what you think about the sound quality, if there were random background noises kicking in. There's only so much I can do about that. You can you can create filters that will filter out a certain amount of sound, but if the sound is loud enough that it starts to get closer to the sound of my, like the noise level of my voice, then if I try and gate out, if I try and filter out that noise, then what'll happen is I'll also filter out part of me talking. So you'll only hear me at the loudest moments, and when I'm quieter, the video will be muted. So I will extend an apology for my diminished capacity to deliver videos that have, like, basically, sorry that my videos have more problems now. It'll be that way for a bit. Now, the good news is, once we move past this to the next stage, then I'm legitimately going to have a room just dedicated to being a recording room. So we'll be able to do whatever it takes. Soundproof the walls, set things up in a more permanent fashion. I can even have nice magic decorations up on the wall, depending on how things go. So we may or may not need the green screen. We'll see. I don't know what it's going to be. But either way, I'm excited about the future. I'm happy to be back talking with you guys about magic. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I will leave a link to the last lore video that we made over on the lore channel if you want to go and check that out. You want to hear some cool magic lore. Anyhow, thanks for coming by, my friends. See you guys for the next video.